Hello everybody. Today I'm going to be sharing 2 delicious ferments that are beginner friendly. These were the ferments that I started with, and they're not difficult at all.
Before we begin, I'm excited to say that this video is a collab, so there are 2 more ferments that you can learn today by hopping over to my friend Tasha Rose's channel. That is Radical Mothering. You're gonna love it. And that link is in my description box. All right, let's go.
The first ferment is sauerkraut. Sauerkraut, if you haven't heard of it, it is cabbage and it is fermented for a few days. It's tangy. It is delicious. So in order to make sauerkraut, we need to get a head of cabbage and just chop it up. I'm using my salad chopper, but you can do this with a knife.
And as for how to chop it, that really depends on you and your preference. Some people like it really thin, other people like thicker pieces of cabbage. It's really up to you.
The reason ferments are such a great idea, especially during flu season, is because it balances your gut, and your gut really is such a huge factor in your wellness. Now, after we've got it all chopped to our liking, we're gonna add 1 tablespoon of salt to our chopped cabbage. And what this is gonna do, it's gonna draw out the water from the cabbage. So now that we have that salt on there, I'm gonna go ahead and get a rag, place the rag onto the cabbage, and just set it aside for half an hour. Now, while we're waiting, we are going to sanitize our mason jar that the sauerkraut is going in. It's so important to have sanitized tools that we're using when we're fermenting, because we're working with live bacteria and we want the good bacteria to dominate. Be sure to take it out with tongs and just keep yourself safe. All right, so now we've got our sanitized jar and we're ready to take the rag off of the bowl because it's been half an hour now. We're gonna go ahead and take that off and we're gonna give it a good stir. We're going to stir that salt around all over the cabbage. You'll notice that your cabbage is getting a little bit more watery. The water is drawing itself out, but it shouldn't be super liquidy at this point. Now go ahead and give that a great stir, and we're going to replace the rag on the top and set it aside for another half hour.
Don't forget to cover it.
All right, my friends, we are almost finished now. So we're gonna give it one final stir. It's been half an hour and we're gonna get that salt, make sure it's everywhere. And at this point, the cabbage should be pretty juicy. We're finally going to place our cabbage into our sterilized mason jar. And the cabbage should come up till about 1 inch before the lid of the jar. I found out that my jar was a little bit big for the amount of cabbage that I had, so I did end up changing that out later on, but you will just see me putting it in this one for now.
Once you've got all your cabbage inside your jar, you can go ahead and pack it down.
And the idea being that we don't want any air pockets in the cabbage. We want it all to be packed down. And like I said, ideally we'd only have 1 inch of space at the top of the jar. So this jar is a little too large for the amount of cabbage I had. I think my cabbage was on the smaller side, and to do this recipe you really need a medium-sized cabbage. It still worked, we just had to do a different jar. So we push it all the way down, and you want to kind of scrape the top clean, get those bits of cabbage that are on the top to that part at the bottom. That way they ferment properly. Then we seal it up and we are done for now. We're going to set this aside and we're not going to touch this until tomorrow morning.
sometime within the first 24 hours, you're gonna wanna burp it, which means you're gonna wanna open the jar, let the air out, and close the jar. So simple. I let my sauerkraut sit on the counter for 3 days, and then I was able to eat it with my lunch, and I'm storing it in the fridge now. Done. All right, let's move on. I'm so excited to share this next ferment with you because this is my favorite. We're gonna make kombucha.
If you're intimidated by fermenting, go ahead and give kombucha a try because it's really hard to mess it up. Step 1, we're gonna brew some tea. I've got some ready to brew black tea. You can also use green tea, but I highly recommend black for the beginner because it doesn't have that bitter taste. So essentially we're going to be making a sweet tea here, and we're gonna be adding our sweet tea to our Scobie, which stands for Symbiotic Culture of Bacteria and Yeast. Here it is. It looks like a little pancake. And what this is gonna do is it's gonna turn our tea into a delicious, nutritious, amazing fizzy beverage. Our ratios for half a gallon of kombucha are going to be 1 cup of pre-brewed kombucha, 4 tea bags, and half a cup of sugar. And of course, enough tea to fill up the half a gallon jug. So that's what we've got right here. We're just waiting for our tea to heat up.
While we're waiting, I will show you this little Scobie. So Scobies take on the shape of the container they are in. So this little Scobie is very small and large, and the one next to it is more flat and disc-like. And this one that we're gonna brew will create a new Scobie that's even larger. You want to make sure that you have a healthy Scobie. You don't want to see any mold or black spots on it. It's supposed to look weird, but not disgusting. So you can actually, what you're seeing here is my Scobie hotel. This is a way of storing the Scobies that your kombucha tea is going to inevitably create for future use. It's a good idea to have several Scobies on hand, and a properly maintained Scobie hotel can last for months. I've even had Scobies withstand over a year of storage. Now the real fun begins. I've got my hot tea, and to it I'm going to add my half a cup of sugar, my kombucha Scobie, as well as my cup of previously brewed kombucha. I chose that Scobie because it just looked so healthy. And I'm going to be adding this, but I have to wait until the tea has cooled down. If it's too hot for you, it's too hot for Scobie. So we're gonna go ahead and make this sweet tea, and we're gonna mix it up with a whisk. Best to avoid metal tools if you can. Here, I'm gonna use this silicone covered whisk to make it sweet tea. If you avoid white sugar like I do, you can rest assured this sugar is not for you. It's for Scobie. Scobie will eat the sugar and produce what it needs to produce to create this beautiful fermented tea. So this is my one exception where I allow the white sugar in my diet. Awesome. We've had about 3 hours of cooling. It's about 1 a.m. right now. And I put the Scobie inside of my kombucha. Now I'm gonna go ahead and store it. And I'm gonna place a clean towel on top and put a rubber band to secure it. That way no particles of dirt get inside my kombucha. That can actually really mess up your brew. When choosing your storage location, think about somewhere cozy that doesn't fluctuate in temperature too much, and it is not going to be disturbed, because fluctuations can actually mess up your brew. All right, it's been a week, and this is what it looks like. It looks lighter in color, and I can already tell it is not ready yet. You could see at the top there the new Scobie baby is forming, but it's not fully formed yet. And honestly, the best advice I ever got when making kombucha was not to check on your kombucha. So I'm breaking the rule so I could show you guys in the video. But honestly, it's like when you're making a baby inside the womb. Like, sometimes you peek on it with the ultrasounds, but there are some things that God just wants to keep mysterious. So that's how I like to think of it. I like to keep it covered and then check it. You check it in about a week, but I'm going to give this another few days. And if you want to see what happens, go ahead and click subscribe so you can see when part 2 launches, where I'll be showing you how the kombucha turned out. Until next time, praying for your health and well-being. God bless you. Goodbye.